The Dallas Mavericks have been one of the best teams in the NBA all season long throughout the Eastern or the Western Conference. We look at these guys so far this season, they have a total record of 14-8, which is good enough to have them in third place in a very loaded Western Conference. And I'll always make sure to put that emphasis on loaded when it comes to the Western Conference because it is so many good teams over there. And it's a battle almost each and every night whenever they're having an interconference game, but nonetheless, as of late, the Dallas Mavericks, this team is really starting to heat up. We look at them over their last 10 games, they are 9-1, and they're also in the middle of a 5-game winning streak. And the Dallas Mavericks, as a team, they've been playing some great basketball. We look at them statistically. As of right now, they ranked 4th in the NBA when it comes to offensive rating, and they also ranked 10th in the NBA when it comes to defensive rating. So they have a top 4 offense while also being able to have a top 10 defense, and they're also putting up the 5th most points per game at 118 points per game. So I'll say all of these numbers to you, all of the team success, how they're performing offensive and defensively, all of what I just said. Of course, it sounds like they're playing at a very high level, which they are, but I think the Dallas Mavericks, when you look at this team and you look at their circumstances throughout this entire season, I think that this team has the opportunity to play at an even higher level and take their game to the next level. And the first thing I want to focus on for the Dallas Mavericks is Luka Doncic. And when it comes to Luka and the Dallas Mavericks, there's a couple of different things I'm looking at that indicate the Dallas Mavericks playing at an even higher level than what we're seeing right now. And the first thing I want to look at with Luka is his health. Man, he has been nowhere near close to 100% health so far to start this season. We got to remember he limped into this season, dealing with the calf injury that kept him out the entire preseason. And then you watch Luka throughout the first couple of games of the year. They're zooming in on him, and he's looking super, I wouldn't say super hurt, but he's looking like he's not 100%. He's holding on to different body parts, and it looks like, it's a struggle for him to get up and down the court sometimes. So that's something that we have to take into account. He hasn't been 100% healthy to start this season, and then also he's been missing some games. He strained his groin at the beginning of this year, and he also had a more severe wrist injury that kept him out for 5 games. So he's missed 6 games so far on the year. And impressively, the Dallas Mavericks, they have a record of 5-1 without Luka this year, which is crazy. We know with the way that the Dallas Mavericks has been constructed prior to having prior to having Kyrie Irving, it would be very hard for them to survive 6 games without Luka, and then 5 of those games being consecutive games. So I just want to say that is a great sign for the Dallas Mavericks, for Luka to be able to sit longer and heal these injuries and try to get as close to 100% as possible, and the team still be successful. I think this is big time for the Dallas Mavericks, because we look at Luka throughout his entire NBA career, or at least the last couple of years. I know for a fact the last couple of years, if you look at Luka and you look at him, you look at his status before a game, it's almost every other game that Luka might be questionable because he is dealing with an injury, and it's almost a different injury every time. And he's always so banged up, but he loves the game of basketball so much, he always toughens it out. And we don't see Luka miss too many games because he loves the game of basketball. And prior to getting Kyrie Irving, he is so important to the Dallas Mavericks for what they do on the offensive side of the ball. So I think as the season goes on and they get a more healthier Luka Doncic, we're going to see this Dallas Mavericks offense even more explosive, even though right now they're top 5 in the NBA in total points per game and top 4 in the NBA when it comes to offensive rating. So I think they could take their game to another level there. And that other thing I was talking about with Luka, it goes hand in hand with this. Luka kind of started this season not shooting the ball that efficiently. He's had 2 games since he's returned with his wrist injury, and he shot the ball so much more efficiently than he started this season. But to start this year, Luka averaging 29 points per game, which is outstanding, but he's shooting 45% from the field, 34% from 3, and 74% from the free throw line. We compare that to last season. Luka averaged 33 points per game while shooting 48% from the field, 38% from 3, and around 77% from the free throw line. So just a little bit of a drop off of little bit of a drop off in efficiency, but Luka is an amazing basketball player. And like we said, those last 2 games, he's been shooting it very efficiently, over 50%. And for a player like Luka, that's all it takes to heat things up. So I'm big on the Dallas Mavericks because they haven't been getting the best performances out of Luka when it comes to his efficiency and his scoring outputs. And it's not knocking him, it's just holding him to the standards that he set to himself. We know how amazing of a basketball player that he is. So just imagine how things are going to start to look as he's as he's starting to get more healthier and his shot is starting to fall a little bit more. I think that's going to work out greatly for the Dallas Mavericks. So whenever you're in a situation where your best player hasn't gotten off to the best start shooting the basketball to the season, and then they've also been a little nicked up to where they had to miss multiple games, and you can be as successful as the Dallas Mavericks has been, I am genuinely impressed with the way they've been able to perform under these circumstances. And it hasn't just been injuries to Luka. PJ Washington, who is really good, has missed multiple games for the Dallas Mavericks this season. Klay Thompson, Derek Lively. So they've been dealing with some injuries to start this season, but you wouldn't be able to tell because they've been playing at such an elite level. And that says a lot about Coach Jason Kidd. It says a lot about Kyrie Irving, and it also says a lot about the role players that the Dallas Mavericks has acquired for these guys. But one more player, before we get into those role players, one more player I want to talk about who I think could turn things up a little bit more for the Dallas Mavericks is Klay Thompson. And Klay Thompson, he was brought to this team in free agency last year. The Dallas Mavericks, they were able to get one of the best shooters in NBA history, probably a top 5 shooter in the NBA history, a multiple-time All-Star, and a multiple-time champion at the age of 34, where he's on a little bit of a decline. They get to come in, bring him in. He gets to be a role player for the Dallas Mavericks, where he's going to be just responsible for playing defense and knocking down 3-point shots. And then also you get to have this type of shooter. You get to play him alongside 2 of the most gravitational players in all of the NBA with Luka and Kyrie Irving. So I thought this was a great pickup for the Dallas Mavericks. And so far, in my personal opinion, I don't think Klay Thompson, I don't think he's gotten off to a terrible start to the season or an abysmal start to the season, because I know some people who get real caught up in the numbers sometimes. You look at Klay Thompson numbers, he's averaging 13 points right now, and then his shooting splits are 37% from the field, 36% from the three-point line, and 94% from the free throw line. So some people might look at that and be like, wow, Klay has been trash so far this season. But one thing we got to take into account when it comes to jump shooters, and especially in today's game where they're taking so many jump shots, Klay Thompson, he's at a point in his career. We talked about what the Dallas Mavericks brought him in for. They brought him in to shoot the ball. So you look at his game log each and every night, his 3-point field goals are almost either they make up half of his field goal attempts, or sometimes they take up majority of his field goal attempts. And probably even with Klay Thompson, when he's taking 9 threes, a lot of those shots inside the 3-point line are probably mid-range jump shots as well. So we all know making a jump shot is a lot harder than making a layup or a dunk. So I think that's something that we take into a case. I think that's something we take into account. But with that being said, that still doesn't mean that there's not room for improvement for Klay Thompson. I still think there's room. I definitely think there's room for improvement, and I think this is another reason why the Dallas Mavericks should be optimistic. I expect Klay Thompson, like we said, being able to shoot the basketball like that, that's not something that just goes away overnight. So I'm very confident at some point in this season, Klay Thompson is going to be able to be a little bit more efficient. Like I said, I know he's taking majority of his field goal attempts are jump shots, but still, you would like him to be a little bit more accurate. But I'm just saying, when guys are taking more jump shots and they're not falling, their shooting splits are going to look like that. But I think Klay Thompson, at this point in his career, even with the injuries, how things ended in Golden State last year, I still think he's going to be able to be more accurate from the field for the Dallas Mavericks. So Dallas, they've been able to average the 5th most points in the NBA this season at 118 points per game. And they've been fourth in offensive rating, and Klay Thompson has not been accurate at all by his standards. And Luka Doncic, he got off to a slow start this season as far as his efficiency. And then Luka missed 5 straight games for the Dallas Mavericks. And they've been able to still look like a powerhouse in the Western Conference, so that's very impressive. And then, that's why I feel like the Dallas Mavericks, they're not at full power, but they're slowly getting there, and I think we're gonna see them be really good for the entirety of this season. And then, like we said, we gotta give props to Coach Jason Kidd, to coach, and to the role players, and to Kyrie Irving of the Dallas Mavericks. And I think this is a great job for Jason Kidd, because whenever you're missing something like Luka, a guy that's a triple-double threat each and every night while getting 30 points, anytime something like that is not available for an extended amount of time, even when something like that is not available when they get into foul trouble in the game, you got to make some really good adjustments as a coach, because that's a lot of production that you're missing. And then for your teammates also have to step up, and that's all we've been seeing from a bunch of guys on the Dallas Mavericks. Kyrie Irving, he has been sensational so far this season. When he had Luka Doncic in the lineup and he was facing normal coverages before teams could start putting so much more emphasis on him because there was no Luka, Kyrie Irving, his efficiency was out of this world. I kept telling my little brother this. I'm like, bro, Kyrie Irving is shooting 50-50, 85, and I said that to him. Like, every time I check Kyrie Irving numbers, he was still shooting 50-50, 85, but it's dwindled down a little bit. But what he's shooting right now is still like 40% from 3, mid 40s, and from the field goal percentage, and then we know he's still money from the free throw line. So he's been outstanding. And then the Dallas Mavericks, they surrounded these guys with a great collection of role players. PJ Washington, he's been playing at a much higher level than what he began this season with. Something that he did while Luka was out during his 5-game absence, he really stepped up rebounding the basketball. I'm talking about consecutive games getting 8, 9, 10 rebounds, and that's not really something we've seen from PJ Washington, him getting all the way up to 10 rebounds. So he took on that role because, like we said, Luka, he's a guy, he might have his lapses on the defensive side of the ball, but he is a very good rebounder, and he grabs a lot of them. So PJ Washington, he made up for that slack. And then all these guys have been pitching in, scoring the basketball. PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, Quentin Grimes, the former Knick, Spencer Dinwiddie has had some big-time games for the Dallas Mavericks. So everybody has been pitching in. Najee Marshall, when he was in the starting lineup, taking on that role of guarding the opposing team's best wing scorer. So it's just been a group collection of pitching in for the Dallas Mavericks, and it's definitely been paying off. So it seems like they went through something on that championship run, and coming up short has made them even hungrier than they were last year, because they look even better than what we're seeing last year, given that they're not even playing their best basketball yet. So that's what I want to talk about with you guys today. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, comment down below if you agree or disagree, and then subscribe for more weekly content. We do this all the time, man, and that's curtains.